yanked it away. "Don't touch me," she shouted. "Please." Lord Alvy's arm fell to his side. She finally looked at him. And as they locked eyes, she felt that heaviness inside her transferring to him. Her heart beat erratically and her breaths were short. Beside them, Harrison's jaw clenched. She knew he wanted to say something more, but held back. Gwyneth spun and moved forward again, her eyes stinging, a sickening lump in her throat. The men said nothing else and did not try to stop her again. When they got to the doors, one of the guards eyed her and opened his mouth as if to protest, but Harrison spoke up. "The Lady Gwyneth is with us." The blustering sea wind blew Gwyneth's red curls and made her squint as she bounded down the steps and onto the cobblestone path. Clusters of armed guards and soldiers stood poring over maps, discussing, pointing. Gwyneth looked toward the eerily desolate market and shivered. At this time of day, it was usually bustling. Harrison stopped to talk to the soldiers, and she heard him mention Tiernan Siebold. Was the lad to return? That should make Princess Vixie happy. She'd been quiet and forlorn since he'd returned home to Cape Creek after the hunt. Gwyneth headed left toward the market. The path turned from smooth stones to pebbles and crushed shells, then to dust and hay as they reached the stables. Her legs burned from walking so fast. Happiness filled Gwyneth at the sight of her bay, Mosby. She cooed softly as she opened his stall, and took a moment to pat his brown coat and run a hand down his black mane. "Don't be afraid today, boy," Gwyneth whispered. She didn't know what was in store for them, but it sounded as if the new beast was land-dwelling. How that madwoman Rosaria was able to get it onto royal lands was a mystery. She most likely had people working for her, villagers who she'd bribed or threatened. Gwyneth became very aware of Lord Alvy several stalls down. He was too loud to be missed. She had no idea how he could be stealthy on a hunt when his very masculinity rang out every time he came near. Grunts as he worked, his hulking footsteps on the beaten soil, his deep humming voice as he spoke to his horse. Gwyneth swallowed hard. They led their horses out at the same time, and found Harrison waiting for them on his military steed. Gwyneth and Lord Alvy mounted, Gwyneth hiking her skirts up to her knees. Harrison stared at her with his serious dark eyes, before quietly sighing. "The beast disappeared into the North Forests. It'll be blocked by the royal walls and the seas, so unless the bloody thing can fly, it'll still be in there." Lord Alvy gave an ill-humoured laugh. "Are any of your men to accompany us?" "Aye, a dozen will flank us, in an arc, with bows and swords at the ready. I've ordered them not to advance unless you or I are wounded." Both men looked at Gwyneth, who sat up taller, jutting out her chin to ward off any last-minute orders for her to stay behind. "Let's go, then." "Your father will have my hide for this," Harrison told her. "I'm of age. Even he cannot stop me." "You don't have to do this, Lady Gwyneth," Lord Alvy said. Gwyneth dug her heels into her horse and he jumped forward. "Neither do you," she called over her shoulder. "You have nothing to prove," he hollered from behind her. "Neither do you," she yelled back. Harrison caught up and they galloped side by side in silence. A dozen soldiers on horseback crested a hill and followed. As they passed the West Commons and neared the forest, Lord Alvy sped up to Gwyneth's other side. The three slowed their pace and eyed the trees. Then the men scanned the ground. "There." Harrison pointed to a spot of slightly uprooted dry grass, where it looked as if hooves had dug in. Their horses moved at a slow pace, the hunters easily following a path made by the creature. The farther they got into the woods, the quieter and more shaded it became. Gwyneth's heart thumped too loudly, and she found herself holding her breath. Her senses became keenly sensitive to each snapping twig and rustling leaf. Her eyes swiveled from side to side. A wild bush to the left looked funny to her, lopsided as if it had been trampled. She pointed to it and the men nodded, changing their direction. "Good eye," Harrison whispered.